Well, hello again, viewers. This is Grandpa again, thanking you again for coming in on this channel because you got other things that you could do. But I got a special guest today, Doctor Taffany Lim, with whom I worked for, God, a long time
Many
at Pat
years.
Brown Institute on community policing.
Mhm.
And she has written a book on the ripple effects of educating prisoners.
Mhm.
And it is thought provoking, and I think you will enjoy it. And she is going to introduce herself and begin by letting us know how she got involved in this project and what some of the highlights are, and also what some of the things she might offer to policymakers.
Hmm.
So, Dr. Lim, it's yours.
Thank you, Grandpa, or Dr. Norman. It's an honor to be with you here today. Um, so you've known me for a long time.
I
And
have.
I think in all those years that we were talking to police officers, I don't think there was one time that I ever said, gosh, I really want to work with people who are incarcerated. I don't think that ever came up in the conversation. And in fact, it was an unplanned thing. I don't have anyone in my family, or I didn't actually know anyone who'd been incarcerated before. But the opportunity fell in my lap when I was at Cal State LA. And I was the executive director at Cal State LA's Center for Engagement, Service, and the Public Good. And there I got to bring in all of my interests into one position about working with community and volunteerism, about service and training. And when I was there, I was invited by a faculty member to go and meet some people who were incarcerated at Lancaster State Prison, which is about 90 minutes away from our campus. And he was telling me that he'd been volunteering there as an English professor and teaching the students about how to write and how to write better. But he had learned that many of them had acquired AA degrees, associate's degrees, a lot of it through correspondence programs. But some of them had multiple AA degrees. And what he was learning is that there was this group of people who were desperate for an opportunity to transform their lives and to get more educated. But they were stuck. They couldn't get beyond an AA degree. And so, long story short, I went and met the students. Our president at the time, Bill Covino, and his executive vice president, Jose Gomez, were very, very much on board. And together we all started the first face-to-face bachelor's degree for incarcerated students in the state of California. And that was in 2016. And honestly, since then, my life has completely changed. I'm a good program administrator, and I think that was why I was invited to do this. But now I think it's really become a lot of my life's work. I'm very fulfilled that this will probably be the last chapter of my professional career. I feel very good about the work that we've done.
How many people have you involved over these years?
Well, so at this point in time, and I'm no longer at Cal State LA, although I'm very proud to have been a part of the graduation of 3 cohorts over at Lancaster. They all got bachelor's degrees in communication. And now that program has spread to other prisons in California and other cohorts. I think what's really remarkable, though, is that when we first started the program in 2016, our first cohort was maybe 80 to 90% of the guys had life sentences or life without the possibility of parole sentences. In other words, these were individuals who expected to die in prison. They didn't think that they were ever going to come home. At the same time, though, they were really passionate about learning. And what I learned from them is that they were passionate about learning because it was going to help them, they realized, become better people, but also because they wanted to have, which is why the book is called this, a ripple effect on their own families, friends, and communities. They realized that even if they were never going to get out of prison, they could have a positive impact. And they were. So even other people on the yard felt better about themselves because they said, wow, if there's a college that's here on this yard and they think it's important for us to get educated, maybe I don't even want to get educated, but that must mean we're of value, right? We met their brothers, their sisters who went back to school because they were going to school. They would talk about having phone calls with their younger cousins, nieces, and nephews and comparing their report cards at the end of every quarter. So they are really inspiring the change, even though they may not have thought that they were going to come home. And I've really come to believe that that ripple effect is what could ultimately end, this problem we have in the United States of mass incarceration, because we know that the more educated people are and the more people have sustainable incomes, livable wages, the less likely they are in order to commit a crime. So let me just say this, of the first 50 students that we graduated, in fact, many of them had their sentences commuted. And so even after serving 20, 30 years, of those maybe 45 people that we graduated, 20 of them are home. It's really remarkable.
That is remarkable. And the important thing here, it seems to me, is that they were a resource to their families and to the community. That they actually inspired members of their family. So there is just this interchange between those in prison and those at home, and the aspirations are the same. And so often we think that when people go to prison, that it's a lost cause.
That's right.
And what you have shown is that not only can they be a resource while they're in prison, but look at the commutation of the sentences as a result of their education.
That's right.
It's remarkable.
That's right.
Go ahead.
And they're home now. And so they started coming home in 2019. So some of them came home before they'd actually finished their degrees. They were promised, and they had a seamless transition to the Cal State LA campus where they would finish their degree. And, there's been zero recidivism. And honestly, the questions that I tell people they need to ask now is not about how many of them go back to prison or recidivate. I said, that's too low of a bar. I said, ask me how many of them are now able to help support their families. How many of them are giving back to the communities that they once harmed? How many of them have gone on to get master's degrees? How many of them are making positive changes in community and family life? And I would say all of them.
My goodness. What kind of advice would you give to our policymakers and elected officials regarding our prisons? I mean, we tend to have more people incarcerated than anybody anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So from what you've demonstrated, we've got these enormous resources that we have penned up in prisons, and there are costs to the community, and they're not serving the community. And yet, with a program like yours, not only can we reap the benefits, immediate benefits, but future benefits, as you say, because many of them go on to get additional degrees once they're out of prison.
Right. I mean, I think that there are a lot of opportunities for policymakers. Obama, right before he left, he reinstated Pell eligibility for incarcerated students. In other words, there had been a period of time, actually since 1994, when Bill Clinton signed the Violent Crime Act. It rescinded Pell funding from incarcerated students. There used to be a lot of programs for people who were incarcerated to continue on with higher education. But when the Violent Crime Act was signed in 1994, all of those programs evaporated overnight. And so uh, Obama, right before he left, reinstituted Pell funding. And basically, what that does is it's not money that goes to the student himself. It actually goes to the universities and colleges that are serving them, but it helps to pay for their tuition. And it's the same, it's not extra money. It's the same money that anyone who meets a certain income threshold would be eligible for. And many of the individuals who are incarcerated are eligible for that. That is a huge, huge help. But I think that honestly, what policymakers need to understand, and it's something I've learned, right? I don't think I believed in second chances before. I don't think I knew what that meant. And I have really come through the students that I engage with and continue to be in very close relationship with. The book is an interview of 13 of our students who graduated with college degrees, and there's many more, and we all are in regular communication. But I think it wasn't until really engaging with them as human beings that I understood that second chances are real, and that these are individuals who have a lot of regrets. Not a single one of them is denying that they made terrible, terrible mistakes and terrible, terrible choices in their past. But what they do want to do, and very sincerely, is to make a difference moving forward so that those same kind of mistakes are not going to be made by them or by their families. And so I think that what policymakers can do to recognize second chances is not only ensuring that higher education is available to people who are incarcerated, but also that these individuals will be able to get jobs and meaningful jobs, right? Where they can contribute back to their community and have a living wage, because I think that they can do that. But there's a lot of employers that are, and I get it, a little bit nervous about that. But I think if we make it policy where we say, you know what, we believe in second chances, we believe that people can actually rehabilitate themselves, we're all better for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first interactions with people who were being discharged from prison was the New Careers Program back in 1960s, where they took the inmates who would likely be on parole from the prison, and they placed them in nonprofit organizations. And they were the new careerists.
I love it.
And they brought an altogether different perspective. And some of them rose to unbelievable heights. I happen to be still friends with some who were there. Of course, we're all kind of in the grandpa stage now, so we talk about what was and what used to be. But it seems to me that this has made a tremendous leap from just placing people in organizations where they can get a work experience to really preparing them today for tomorrow's future. Mm-hmm. And that to me seems to be one of the major objectives of a program like yours. Mm-hmm. 50 people having been graduated, many of them gone on to get additional degrees. Any stand out in particular to you?
Well, I also want to say that since we started that program in 2016, now there's 7 or 8 bachelor's degree programs in prison all over the state of California. And as of this spring, just under 300 individuals, men and women, will have earned bachelor's degrees. And that includes UC Irvine, UC Riverside, Cal Poly Humboldt, Sacramento State. I mean, there's really amazing things being done by our public universities, and we should be super proud of that.
Well, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
All over the state, has it had an impact on any other states or any other prisons outside of California?
Yeah, when Obama signed the Second Chance Pell Act, it's actually helped cause, create a real proliferation of bachelor's degrees and community colleges in prison. And so you'll have programs. Bard College is one of the ones that has been doing this the longest for many, many years. But there's also, Yale, NYU, Georgetown, Cornell, right? A lot of East Coast colleges that are doing this work. There's, interestingly enough, a lot going on in Texas. They've very quietly been educating and providing master's degrees to people who've been incarcerated, for a very, very long time. So, yeah, I think, Alex, what you said about jobs that's actually my new mantra is that a bachelor's degree is not enough, not by itself, especially if someone's been incarcerated since they were 16 years old and for more than 20 years of their life. It isn't enough. They need the social network. They need mentorship. And they need exposure. I think a lot, and it's not just them. I think a lot of our students today seem to think that, college is about getting a job. Mm-hmm. And we're very limited in what we know of for jobs.
Yeah.
And I think, exposing individuals to a world of different kinds of careers and possibilities is very exciting. I mean, I always tell the students, do you think I went to college thinking I was going to go into prison education? That's not how it works, right? It's being open to, honestly, mentors and people like yourself who open your eyes to new things all the time.
Well, you're right about that. I hardly had any idea that I would end up as a social worker, right, or professor or any of that.
That's right. Right. Yeah. You just got to be open to it, open to the new ideas.
And speaking of open opportunities, it seemed, I recently did a podcast on forgiveness, and I come to find out that the kind of forgiveness that I practice is based on restoration, because there has to be some contrition or some atonement or some change in the behavior of the individual. And it seems to me that in your description of your program, both restoration and forgiveness are taking place, because some of the people their sentences were commuted. And I'm sure that one of the things that had an impact on that, on influence, was the fact that they were in this this program.
Yes, I think so. And, again, I think that it's really important for people to understand, there are feelings about it from some people in the public. I would say overall, people feel very positively about it. But I think that there are also people who are like, they don't deserve anything but bread and water, why should they be getting an education? I work 2 or 3 jobs. I can't get my kids through school, I think that I think that we do need to, and I would love to invite some of those students actually to come onto your podcast, because they're amazing and they say it so much better than I could ever paraphrase. But they live every day with knowing that they really messed up. And and they really feel like they owe it to their families and they owe it to their victims to live better lives and to make the community a better place.
That's interesting. What would that look like?
Well, I think it's honestly what they're doing now. You know, a number of them say everything I do is in memory of how I messed up before. It's, you know, one of our students who actually helped me to really understand this ripple effect idea. He was saying, you know, when I was incarcerated, all the focus was on the negative ripple effect. And he said, and I was constantly coming to grips with the fact, you know, I cost someone his life. That was someone who was going to get married. That was someone who was going to school, who was hoping to be an educator someday. That was someone who was probably going to be a dad someday. That was someone who was going to make a positive difference in his community. And I disrupted that. And they said, and another negative ripple effect that they would have was on their own families, their mother, their aunties, their parents who cared about them, you know, and whose lives were kind of put on stall because of what they did, was a negative ripple effect. And I think that for a lot of them, they spent, you know, 10, 20 years in prison thinking that was all I'm going to do is be a negative ripple effect. And one of the things that they began to see through education was, oh, I can actually be a positive ripple effect. And again, maybe I'm not even going to come out of prison, but I can be a better person, number one. And by being a better person, I can role model to others. And then I might come home, and then I might have another positive ripple effect in the community.
And many of them did.
And many of them did and still do. Yeah. Yeah, they're really amazing. So yes, when you have time, I would love to invite a couple of our students onto your podcast because they say it 1,000 times better than I could ever say it.
Well, we can make that happen. You know?
Let's make it happen.
Okay, good.
Let's make it happen.
Where can your book be found? Are you marketing it? Or are you?
Yes. I should have had it. It's called The Ripple Effects of College Programs in Prison. It's published by Bloomsbury. And so it's available on the Bloomsbury website, but it's also available through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and those distributors. All the proceeds go to the guys.
What's the price of the book?
The current price is $24, I think.
Okay, that's a good big book.
Yeah.
All right.
And all of the proceeds go to the guys whose stories are featured here. And basically, it's a sharing of, again, 13 of our students who graduated with bachelor's degrees who talk about how education has changed the trajectory of their lives. Because no surprise, many of them had learning disabilities in school, undiagnosed. Many of them had terrible, terrible traumas that were impacting their ability to learn in the classroom and their ability to be successful. And fascinatingly enough, you know, a good majority of these students were either high school dropouts or did not earn their degrees until well after. And they didn't earn their high school degrees or diplomas until they were actually in prison. So for them to have gone from being high school dropouts to actually earning bachelor's degrees in prison, it's truly monumental.
It's amazing. It is.
They're really amazing.
Yes. And, you know, you mentioned the second chance opportunity. And one of the things that I'd like for the viewing audience to know about you. And my viewing audience is over 16 countries, and from the United States to Kyrgyzstan,
Mm.
China, Japan. I mean, people all over resonated with many of the topics that I present in my episodes. And I'd like for the viewing public to know a little bit about second opportunities for you, too, because you recently were a victim of the Altadena Eastern
Mm.
fires
Mhm.
and in California, and you lost, and now you have to rebuild. Would you let our audience know a little bit something about you
Mhm.
and in that situation?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I've lived in Altadena. It's been my home since the year 2000. So we'd been in our home for 25 years when we lost it on January 8th. And it's one of those things that you can't really fathom until it happens to you. You don't you're and what's been powerful, though, honestly, about it is that so many of us were impacted, so many of my neighbors and friends and colleagues, and we've really rallied. And it's been devastating, I'm not going to lie. It's been very depressing. My daughter, who is 16, has a lot of trauma from remembering, escaping, and it's been very, very hard for her. But as a community, like, it's powerful. Like, we are very, very much in support of each other. We're coming back. We're going to rebuild. Actually, just before this podcast, I was invited by a nonprofit that started up that still invites families to come when they get donations to come in and pick up things. And so I actually just went to this donation site, and they were giving out small pieces of furniture, rugs. It's been a beautiful community, and I've actually gotten to see the best side of people as a result.
That's a remarkable story. And maybe we should do something about that too in future.
Yeah.
But first, let's follow up
Okay.
with a few of your graduates,
Yep.
and let's hear their stories and what they're doing, and as a way of expanding the ripple,
Yeah.
because there very well might be people in other communities, other countries, who have given up, who have decided that they were only going to be a negative ripple effect. And here's an opportunity where they can learn that they can also be a positive ripple effect.
I love that.
And through programs like yours and others, of which I have never known, Georgetown and Cornell and
Mhm.
Yale and all those Eastern universities being involved in this program, it's always made much more sense to me that we should be preparing people for a reentry at the beginning of their prison sentences,
Yeah.
because we know that we need to re-socialize them. So we should at least prepare them to be better persons, whether they're going to remain in prison or whether they're going to be paroled.
But
And
that's a very progressive idea, Alex. You know what I mean? Like, it makes total sense to you and I. I'd
yeah,
say a lot of us, a lot of our communities don't believe that yet.
mm,
But I think that when you hear from the students themselves, and again, they're very, very candid about their journey,
mm,
um, they change minds.
okay. Well, I certainly hope that this podcast will have the same similar effect on those who view it, that will change their minds about how to view people who are going into prison as not being throwaways, but as resources that can be rehabilitated and have a positive rippling effect on the communities from which they came or which they did harm.
Yep.
So thank
Absolutely.
you very much for coming on,
Thank you,
for
Grandpa
sharing
Norman.
your story, for sharing your success, for letting us know the marvelous work that you're doing and that others are doing. And we hope to follow this up with more information directly from the graduates. Can't
Yep.
call them prisoners anymore. They're
Nope.
graduates. Yes.
That's right.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you very much.
you. I
Right.
appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. And I always tell my viewers to take care of themselves. And while they're taking care of themselves, to take care of each other. And it seems that you're doing that. You're a living example of it. And for that, I'm very thankful.
I'm thankful for you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.